So I hope you like the new intro. I've just been trying some out. I'll put a different one on for next week's video. I'm just trying out to see what I like and what works. The animation thing's my own design. I did that myself using Photoshop. It's just a matter of turning the video editor on, Photoshop on, the same way you would make like a GIF or something like that, and then you just layer it up and make it. You highlight the layers, and I'll go into it better in a more specific video to show you how I did it. So from Central Parks, I did mention that I wanted to talk a bit more about the way of shooting street photography and things, and how you have to have, not have to have, because there's different methods and different ways of doing it, but you have to sort of have a bit of thicker skin. And what I mean by that is, so you've got photographers who go out there, they set up their setup with a repetitive view, and then just as people go past, they ask, could I take a photograph of you? More of a sort of, I got into the use of calling it farming, thanks to working with Karen and the lecturers at Canterbury Christchurch. You know, farming. So what that means is a bit like some of Cartier Bresson's work, where he sat somewhere and waited for the moment to come past, or to have the action appear in front of him. You know, so you've set up your camera, you put it on a tripod, and you've just let people come into the scene, you've engaged with people directly. So for that you have to have the confidence to go up to somebody and ask a complete random stranger that you've never met, you've never had any interaction with before, hi, you don't know me, but can I take your photo? And that's one method to engage with people. The next method, which I'll go back to that one in a minute, but the next method is more of a hunter-gatherer sort of methodology, and that's where you sort of, not run and gun, but you sort of arrive at the situation, you take the photo you want, you've not really necessarily engaged with anyone, you've not become part of the scene, you've just been a fly on the wall, you've buzzed in and buzzed out. There's sort of what I like to call like the fisherman approach to things, which is a mix of the two. So you don't necessarily, you go somewhere with a set goal in mind, planned out where you want to go, you've planned out what you want to do, cultivate the area sort of thing. So you're just going around, sort of line up the scenarios that you're going for. So like a fisherman would put a net down, trawl along, or put the net down and come back later, pick up the baskets or whatever, you create the environment that you want to take the photos in. So you've gone for a specific theme of like red. You want to catch photographs where red is your dominant colour. It's just a filter rundown. So you just have a look in your mind or Google Maps or whatever, and you think, right, for instance, Chinatown, there's a lot of red around there from the structures and the decor and all that lot. So you go to Chinatown, taking the hunter approach from just photographing as people happen. You might just do laps around Chinatown. You know, you go out towards Leicester Square, back down the main road and back into Chinatown and back round and around. So again, you're sort of farming the area, you're taking a hunter's approach to it, and that's what I mean by the fisherman approach. The method that I find best to use, and it's up to a point, is the hunter's approach. So you just go somewhere, you take sort of ownership of that area, this is where I'm working, this is what I'm doing. For this, I'd say it's like working down at Josh Bay or Viking Bay for me, or I'd get up, I'd go there, and regardless if you were local or a summer guest, I didn't necessarily feel awkward about being there. I just took it as, this is my workplace, this is where I am Monday through Friday, every day for at least an hour or two, whether you're here or not. That mentality works. The more people see you in a place, the more people understand whatever it is you're doing it there, because you might get asked, you know, so what are you doing? I see you quite regularly, and that's fine. I like engagement with people when it's with curiosity and it's relaxed. The bit where the thick skin comes in is when people, I guess, feel threatened or feel uncomfortable your presence in a place. There's nothing you can do about that. Some, you know, take it from their perspective, they probably don't want a camera in their face, or they don't want to be pestered by a stranger who, for all intents and purposes, is doing an odd thing. We've all got smartphones, everyone goes around taking photos of everyone all day, but it's a bit odd, a large professional camera pointed at you deliberately, or just because they're in the, you know, if you're going for a landscape shot and somebody walks past, it's sometimes a bit difficult for them to understand that, no, I'm not photographing you, I'm photographing this scene. You just happen to be passing through it. I haven't pressed the button. That's fine, it happens. Live with it, carry on. Yeah, so some people get confrontational over things like this. And from what I've seen and what I read in some of the books I've got, Martin's Parr methodology, I feel, is probably the best one to take out of it, where you acknowledge the situation. You don't just try to pass it off as you weren't doing anything, but you go, okay, sorry, bye, and you just carry on to the next moment or phase, or just. Then you've got people like Bruce Gilden, who's made out of lead pretty much in terms of thick skin. He takes the idea of owning a space to the next level, in that, I don't mean this in a bad way, I'm not trying to slate anyone, but like, from what I've seen in videos and that, it comes across like he owns New York, and that's fine. Applaud that mentality. If you can have that much of a conviction for, this is my place of work, this is what I'm doing. I will say that he doesn't, it's not harassment, it's not injustice. He takes a photo, that's fine. He's not following you, he's not chasing after you, he just takes the photo and carries on. That's completely within the parameters of what he's allowed to do. But he has got a very determined and outgoing behaviour. It's up to you whether you agree with that mentality or that level of the mentality. I, for one, think it's fine to a degree. My main takeaway is, out of the two, it's good to have the belief that you're in charge of your space. Nobody owns London, but if you're working along the South Bank, Trafalgar Square, on the outskirts, because they get funny with cameras, on the outskirts, Queen's Gardens, wherever it is that you like to shoot, as long as you have the sort of internal belief that, yes, I'm meant to be here, this is my workspace, this is where I get my creativity from, I'm going to shoot here, that can only be a bonus. Having the ability to stand firm when somebody's digging into you. Karen Shepperton as an example. Her farming technique, I also feel, creates a really good and really working environment. It wasn't something I personally took on or followed or did. I think it still works just as well. So a farming technique is a very slow integration. Goes to the place that she works or takes her photos. So for her, Walpole Bay, Lido, no that's not right, Walpole Bay, no it's a Lido isn't it, yeah, project that she was doing. Before she even starts shooting there, you just go there and walk the dog or just go for a stroll around. So your physical manifestation is in the area. People start getting used to seeing you, and then I believe, if I remember the talks and interviews I've had with her, the next step is to engage with the area in itself. So she started doing like little bits of litter picking and talking to people who just put rubbish on the floor and things, and working her way around that way. You take the camera there and you take a few landscape shots and things, just like, not tourists, but just show that's what you're interested in, that's your interest and hobby, and you're still litter picking and you're still walking the dog, and then you engage with more people, and then one day when you're doing the litter picking and picking up people's things, you ask, can you take the portrait or can you take the photo? If you've got a toy camera on you or something, you just oh, would your little one like to play with this? I'm just doing a project on, you invite the conversation and discussion, as it were, to why you're here and what you're doing. And then the next time you're there taking photos of people, 2 or 3 people know what you're doing, and then you're no longer this other person, you're just part of the scenery. In terms of working, Karen is as much a part of Walpole Bay as the signpost telling you not to dive. Engagement with people so as not to be confronted as much. That is not to say you don't get confronted. I again know from discussions that Karen has been confronted about her work at the coast, and that might have a little part to do with things as to how and where you get confronted. Me personally now, I was confronted more down the beach than I have been in London, and I think that's just down to why people are where they are. Even if you're just going to London for a day trip or for work or something, you're there for something very specific. There's very few people just go there for a wander unless you live locally to it. People go there to work, to see a museum, see an art gallery, to see a theatre play. They're there for a reason, and because it's such a rat race in London, people just skim past. You become the fly on the wall. Like me with a camera, I can just stand at Kensington or Piccadilly Circus or something and just stand on the street corner, and you can snap away for hours and no one's going to blink at you twice. They're busy doing what they're doing. You might get the odd look, you might get the odd comment, and again, still people will become confrontational. But down the beach, because it's an environment where we've suddenly got this lull in self-security, and it's a natural, but it's a weird thing to do. So you walk around all day wearing jeans and a shirt, an array of things, trousers, whatever you want. Then you get to the beach, and then just get undressed. You go into swim shorts, a bathing suit. If you're on a nudist beach, you don't wear anything at all. You go from being socially unacceptable to be wearing this as you walk around to being completely understandable. That's just an odd transition, but it's okay to, until somebody walks around with a camera, which again, fully understand as to why it's perceived as odd and perceived as this strange thing to do. But when you're there to photograph surfers and then somebody who you're not sitting necessarily anywhere near, you're sitting there behind you, they're halfway up the beach, they're down the coastline, comes up to you and starts, oh, why are you taking photos of people, what are you doing, blah blah blah. It does take a minute for me to be like, well, I can take photos of you up there on the street and you wouldn't take a second look at what I'm doing. And now I'm down here and you're the one who's undressed. You're the one who's gone in the water. I'm not even photographing you, I'm photographing the surfer who's 100 metres or whatever. You're not my subject matter at the moment. That person over there is, who knows I'm photographing them because I came down here in winter whilst they were surfing. I was here photographing them then, this, whatever. It's that sudden realisation of how unsecure you are, I think. Suddenly being aware that there are other people that aren't here for the same reasons you are. Working at the beach has its own weird set of rules, I think. Like, the laws are the same. Everyone who's gone there, they still do have a right to privacy. Like, I'm not going to eavesdrop, so I'm not going to follow them around all afternoon. But in terms of like photographing like you do in a public space, you, the photographer, have the right to just snap away as you were. Not a conflict of interest, but it's just an odd space to be in and work in from that regard. So I spent 3 years photographing down the beach. I go down in November, January, some points in December, and take photographs of people walking their dog, or again, the surfers being out and about. And it's quite relaxed. You might get asked, why are you taking the photos, but it's not an aggressive why, it's more of a curiosity. But then summer comes around and the whole environment changes. Suddenly there's more shops open, there's more amusements, there's more noise, and with that noise comes a different tonal shift. I think people suddenly feel, as well as being relaxed and at ease with themselves and in a way with nature because you're at the beach, but people become very defensive because they're almost laid bare as they were, as you would be. You go to the beach, you get changed, you get into a swimming costume, and you present more flesh to the world than you would do working in London. With that change in behaviour, as odd as it may be, an odd shift in where your brain is as well. So because everyone else is running around in swim shorts, it's okay. We're all in this together, we're all doing the same thing. But then, as a photographer who's just documenting people in a space, following down the lines of Tony Ray Jones, Martin Parr, Bruce Gilden, people like that, following that line of exploration into photography and into people's behaviour, you suddenly become the other and the threat very quickly. So the questions that you were asked in winter, like, oh, what are you doing? What's this project for? No thank you, I'm not interested in having my portrait done, or yeah, sure, here you go, where do you want me to stand? Suddenly become a little bit more heated. And I think that's again where the fishing idea of working in a space comes from. Making yourself known to an area and known to people can balance off that work. And what I mean by this is, so because I'd been photographing from the end of, when I first moved to the uni, from the end of the summer season, so September, October, November, when there's the odd lifeguard around and there's the odd people going out for a surf still, waiting for the waves to pick up going into winter. Those people get to know you and get to see what you're doing and get to partake in the project. And those people are locals to the area. They know nearly everyone who comes past, they see people, they talk to each other. You know, a lifeguard, just as anyone does in their job, talks to another lifeguard, talks to another lifeguard. And once you've gone and photographed on a few beaches, you know, and come January, that grows up a bit more. You meet 2 or 3 more surfers, you meet 2 or 3 more lifeguards. You meet local people who are interested in doing work in the areas, you know, litter picking, renovating areas and things like that, trying to help build up the area. You meet them, and people just get to know you over time, and it builds and builds, and like snowball effects on its way down. So that when it does come around to the summer months and those more aggressive behaviours they don't become anything, it becomes, you've built a way of helping yourself deal with it. Because 5 or 6 lifeguards know that I photograph there and engage with me on a regular basis. When someone who's come down for a day at the beach sees somebody walking up and down the beach with a camera, asks them, oh, there's a strange person there walking around taking photos of people at the beach, it's an easier thing to deal with. They'll come up to me and go like, you're right buddy, what are you doing? Oh wait, you're Andrew. This did happen to me once. I was photographing just people. The waves were coming in quite, not big, but they were big enough on a shore break sort of thing for people to be messing around and having fun with, which is great. And I was just photographing people jumping in and out of these waves. Someone had quite rightly questioned what I was doing, but had gone to a lifeguard instead of coming to me, which, not knowing who the person was, woman, man, whatever, allowed, you know, a step of diffusion between the situation. You know, I'm not being shouted at for doing what I do all year round, and it was easier to deal with the whole situation. I didn't have to be engaged with in an aggressive manner. However, then a week later, I was there a bit earlier, and the lifeguards are only just setting up, so there's no one down the front. And then another situation where I've just arrived at the beach, I've set my bags and cameras down, I've got a tripod with a medium format camera on it. There's not even any film in the back of it at the moment. I've just set it down, sat down, had a drink, and the person behind us, child, has run around to the water's edge and has started to dig a hole in the water, which is fine, it's what kids do. I'm just sitting there having a drink, and keeping in mind that I don't know if I was there first, but the child had moved into where the frame would have been after I'd sat down. This gentleman comes round, starts going, so what are you doing? You know, why are you photographing people's kids, and why are you photographing at a beach? And for all intents and purposes, you know when someone's trying to say something but they're just not saying it because they don't want to appear rude, trying to call me this, that and other names without actually saying it. And I was just saying, I'm just sitting down, I'm not photographing anybody at the moment. I'm waiting for the tide to drop so that some of the surfers will go out, and then I can take some photos of them. The camera is just here waiting to be used. Of times and the amount of ways I tried to explain this to him, and the more he was going on, do you not think you have to ask people's permission first? And I was like, I've sort of got this unspoken arrangement with the surfers, and if there is a moment that I do feel needs to be questioned or asked, I will do. Yeah. There was a kid who was surfing once, and I didn't want just a photo of him in the foreground. I wanted like a portrait of him, and the parents were there, so I just went up to them and was like, hi, I'm doing this project. I showed them one of the books that I asked, could I take a portrait of your child? And they were more than happy for me to. When he came out to have a break for a minute, I then asked the kid, because it's one thing to ask the adult's permission, but I still think that as an individual, if you're going to ask somebody, you ask them. Got permission, took the photo, all done. Farming a photo and hunter-gathering a photo. Sometimes a moment's going to pass in a matter of seconds. You want to get the image and not deal with the whole, or is it okay? Do you mind doing that again? Can we do this? You know, recreating it in a moment isn't the same as being there for it. It's having that sort of, again, that tough skin. It's being tough and vulnerable. You know, I'm here, I'm meant to be working, this is what I'm doing. I understand your issues. My bad, I'll move on. Or, no, I'm in the right. Leave it alone. I think if any time it does become confrontational, just for your own benefit and your own safety, there's no need to kick up a huge fuss. Just accept that somebody doesn't want you taking photographs of them. If you're in a situation where you can make that clear and not do it, then there's no need to move on. However, when you're on a massive beach, I just move down a bit, you know, you're like, okay, you're clearly not happy with me being here. I have the right to be here, I'm not causing any problems by being here, but maybe not necessarily a spoken compromise, but just an understanding that you think this, I think this. For an example of what I was saying earlier, images like this, which is one that I've taken, this is as part of one of my final projects at uni. I stopped the gentleman in question, I forget his name now, I did have a little chat with him, but I stopped the gentleman in question and just asked and told him I'm doing this project, would it be alright to take a photograph of you? The reason I did that is because he was going to be the sole part of the image. He is the only person recognisable in the image. He is, you know, as a percentage, like 90% of the overall image. I'm taking his likeness, it's only right that I ask or engage. He was standing on the shoreline, he's not particularly far away for me to ask. I had to walk past him, put the camera, as you can see from the photo, quite close to him. So asking him was the only way to get that photograph, and he can, you know, very politely obliged. Thank you very much if you ever see this. So, as I say, an image that isn't practical to ask for people's permission, and is still within the boundaries of being okay. Ignore the tape mark, that's just an editing note for myself. So this image went into my free range exhibition about 2 years ago. As you can see, there's a number of people in the photograph, and when it's blown up you can probably notice a few of them, and if you knew them you could make them out. The people who are under the sellotape and the person out the back, as well as a few people in the foreground, I'd say about 20-30 metres, about 20 metres out, 30 metres out in the water. As you can see from the image, they're at about hip height, knee height to hip height in the water. But it's not practical for me to, by the time I've asked two of them, the people in the background are miles out the way. And the kayaker in that photo, I did sort of know from doing previous photos throughout the summer. And again, he knows what I'm doing there. He didn't find it a problem when I took them earlier and when I told him what they were for. No individual is the main focus of the photograph, which from what I understand of photographing public rules and things is fine. See you next time.